Welcome back to 57.5. You've tuned in just in time for our weekly broadcast, Speak No Evil, hosted as always by Sarcasm the Sickness. Unwind from the daily grind and enjoy.
Hello lovely people of the airwaves, my name is Sarcasm the Sickness, and thank you so much for tuning in tonight to welcome Speak No Evil back to the radio. Before we dive into our questions for tonight, I want to thank everyone who did send in questions for this week's show. However, if we do not receive more questions during the coming week, we will not have enough for next week's show. Please remember that Speak No Evil does rely on participation from you listeners, and I can only do so much without it. After the show, remember to send your questions in to us to either our ask.fm, which you can find at ask.fm/speaknoevilradio, or to our email, speaknoevil@sarcasmthesickness.com. Thank you so much for your support for the show. We're going to dive right into question 1 then, which came into our email this week and was titled Feminine Body Issues. I have a problem with my body. Most people would or could consider me as a female or feminine. I have a higher pitched voice than most other males, and some people say that my haircut is a cry for attention. Another problem is the way I act. I sit or stand in weird positions that apparently make me look feminine, which I'm not trying to be. Is there any way to help stop the situation? And this question definitely does speak to me because I had the same problem growing up. I grew up a little girl who had a very non-feminine body and a voice that was a little too deep for a child, let alone a female child. It didn't help that my hair refused to grow past my shoulders, so I eventually had to give up on the dream of growing long, flowing Shirley Temple curls. I wasn't a fan of Barbies or makeup or playing house. I wanted to play video games and wrestle and play with Nerf guns. In all honesty, I don't really sit or stand in a ladylike way either. If I wasn't being mistaken for a boy, I was being made fun of for being manly. My nickname in 5th grade was Manly Woman, if you can believe it. Of course, the creator of the nickname had to be the boy I had a crush on, right? Middle school made everything worse, as all the other kids, boys and girls, were developing, and I never really did. Only truly getting the negative side of puberty by growing body hair and sweaty armpits. Even as I grew up and went to college, I was still being mistaken for a guy, so trust me when I say I understand your situation. I suppose the first thing to do is to understand that who you are is so much more important than who people think you are. If you, through and through, are male, then no one can take that away from you. Even if you have to stand in front of a mirror and puff out your chest to remind yourself, your self-identity is extremely important. I understand, of course, that just being secure in being male isn't going to make the teasing that much easier, but if you don't have that, then it just feels so much worse. So I'll stand by the fact that being proud of who you are is the most important step to take. Second, unfortunately, the stigma is already there. Sadly, no matter what you do, some people will always see you as being feminine because they refuse to see you as an equal. Because, to recognize that you are who you say you are is to let go of the power they hold over you by trying to belittle you. Remember that these people were never going to see you as a real person anyway. These types of people are detrimental to respectable society and really aren't worth your time. Now, to start trying to change things, I wouldn't really know how to make yourself more manly, just as I never figured out how to be more feminine. I suppose working out could help your physique and put some muscle on you. Dressing in a masculine way may help as well if you aren't already. Join a sport. If you're not a fan of team sports and the possibility of being steamrolled by bigger guys, track and field is always a great option. It's a good way to start building more muscle and boost your metabolism. I'm not sure what your haircut is like, but if it truly bothers you, then it might be time for a change. Other than that, I guess the only way to truly know how to be more masculine is to look around you and look at all the other males. What do they dress like, act like, sit like? Honestly though, I think that's a bunch of garbage. I think you should be proud of who you are despite what anyone else says. People are always trying to bring other people down. It might sound cliche, but it's usually not far from the truth that people who tease others are often insecure about things themselves, whether it be their own masculinity, which honestly is one of the most fragile things in the universe, or something else. If you can be secure in your own masculinity in spite of others, then you will be significantly stronger than most other men. You don't need to sit or act or dress manly to be a man, just like I don't need to wear makeup or a dress every day to be feminine. I do suppose I should warn you though. This second path goes against the norm, and if you don't change, people will still make fun of you. You'll have to grow a thick skin and form some sort of defense against it all. For me, it was sarcasm and the silent treatment. It didn't stop everyone, of course, but a lot of people found it a lot less fun to make fun of me once I started reminding them that I don't need the recognition and approval of others. To wrap things up, the two real options that you have are to make an attempt to be more like the person you want to be, or to learn to love yourself as you are. Neither one of these options is the wrong way, by the way. If you want to be more masculine, you have every right to be. But you shouldn't have to change yourself just because others want you to. So if you do make that change, make sure that it's something you want to do for yourself and not something you want to do for other people. This second question, I believe, came into our Ask.fm app, and it says, I've been feeling pretty down recently. I feel like none of my friends wants to talk to me or be with me. I've just been really lonely, and I haven't been able to muster up the courage to go out and do things. So I sit at home and lay in bed and sleep all day. I don't know what to do. It was signed A. Now, this could be caused by any number of mental illnesses, but the one that came to mind for me, or the ones, sorry, that came to mind for me are anxiety and depression. I personally suffer from depression, so I'll talk more about it from that perspective. The things you're talking about are all pretty common of someone suffering mental illness like depression or anxiety or bipolar. When I begin to feel very sad, I tend to pull away from others for fear that they won't want to be around me when I'm being such a downer, which obviously leads to an increased feeling of loneliness. And feeling now sad and lonely, it makes it so difficult to work up the kind of mental and emotional energy it takes to get dressed in the morning and go out and do things. It's a vicious cycle that I've been caught up in more times than I'm proud of. The first thing to remember about depression, assuming that it is depression, is that it works like a domino effect or a downward spiral. Your brain isn't producing the chemicals you need to maintain a calm and cheerful attitude. So you can be feeling relatively fine, but it may feel constantly like something is just wrong. And when something does go wrong, if you're not careful, it can set you into a downward spiral. Say you're in school and all of your friends pair up with each other instead of with you for a project. Now, this is obviously an inconvenience and can be mildly upsetting to anyone, but for someone like you or me, our minds will take this moment and decide that all of our friends are better friends with each other than they are with us. And if all my friends are better friends with each other, then why would they want to hang out with me? Maybe they don't want to hang out with me and they just feel bad for me. Could I be more pathetic? My friends don't even want to really be my friends, but they just tote me around like some lost puppy because no one else wants me. I should just spare them all the trouble by just not trying to hang out with them anymore. And then they'll be able to move on and be happier because I know they'd be happier without me. Everyone would be happier without me. See how that went from a kind of upsetting scenario to a completely catastrophic one within only a few thoughts? The event of not being paired with a friend for a school project can spiral downwards and downwards until the thought rests with, no one wants me. And the worst thing is, the thoughts aren't always that crystal clear. Sometimes you don't even need to form thoughts in words to get a normal situation to an earth-shattering low. Sometimes it's just a feeling. You just feel that no one wants to be around you, which is more often than not very untrue. The advice I want to pass along to you for dealing with spiraling thoughts actually comes from my old therapist. He told me that I need to learn how to disrupt them as soon as I detected there was a problem. Basically, you need to learn to self-diagnose. The next time you get really down, take a look at yourself and your behavior. What do you do or feel leading up to those days where you just can't will yourself to get up? Personally, I start noticing that I don't talk to people as much, and fixate on just one person, usually the person I'm dating. And if anyone else asks me to do something or get together, I usually reject them. There's another thing that goes along with it. It's just a sinking feeling that something is going wrong. Your tell signs might be different, but I wanted to illustrate mine so that you would have a better idea of what to look out for. Once you can tell when you're slipping, you can learn to prevent it, or at least make it less apocalyptic. Remind yourself of logical explanations for what has happened to you. For example, I got paired up with Brian last time when there was a project, so he just probably wants to spend time with Dave this time. It might still feel bad that you weren't picked this time as well, but at least you can slow or stop the spiraling thoughts. The other thing to learn is how to care for yourself while you are really down. Set small goals for yourself to accomplish every day. Make it something you love to do. That may not seem like it'd help, but when you're sad, even the things you love to do are a chore sometimes. For me, I would try to make sure that I did a drawing every day. Even if it didn't turn out good, at least I got out of bed and tried that day. Or, make yourself get up and go on a walk. Just a short one around the neighborhood, perhaps, but accomplishing a goal, even a small one, can really help lift your spirits. How to get out of a slump like that is tricky. Sometimes it's more of a waiting game than anything. Eventually, you might just start feeling better. But that is not always the case. Sometimes you need to pull yourself out of it. First, by setting those small goals I mentioned, and by steadily increasing the difficulty of them. Maybe week 1, the goal was to go outside and take a walk. So week 2 should be a longer walk. And week 3, you should try to go out with a friend at least one day out of the week, even if it was just a short trip to the store. The more you push yourself, the more you start to feel better about yourself and your surroundings. It can be a long process, but that's actually how I got to where I am. My goals were daily drawings, and eventually drawings that I had to show other people, and it eventually led me to having the confidence to start posting my art on YouTube. I hope this answer wasn't too long-winded, but I guess I have a lot of personal experience with this one, and I just want to help you learn how to take care of yourself. Asking for help from someone close to you is a big deal too. My mother was always there to let me know if she felt like I was spiraling again. She had a good sense about it. She even bought books so that she could learn more about depression and try to help me feel better. They talked about exercise, which is important, a healthy diet, and fish oil supplements that really help balance the brain chemicals. So do some research. I answered most of this from experience with depression, but you could be dealing with anxiety or bipolar or even OCD. The human brain is a beautiful yet frighteningly complicated thing. Learn how to take care of it. Question 3 also came into our Ask.fm and says, I find myself struggling to be happy lately. I can't seem to do anything for myself anymore. The only thing that makes me happy is getting approval from others. Example, I'll study hard to do well in a test to get praised by teachers, not because I care about the result. Advice on how to change? This is a tricky situation. This could stem from having a low self-esteem and needing to have outside approval to feel good about yourself, or from thinking so highly of yourself that it becomes pointless to do things if people aren't praising you for them. Do me a favor and think back to a simpler time. There must have been something you enjoyed doing at some point just for the sake of doing it. A sport, or a hobby, or even studying. Going back to that activity might be a good way to start. Try to reconnect with a you that wasn't dependent on the approval of others. If there's nothing you can think of in particular, you may just have to push through and create a new hobby for yourself. Think of something that, yes, will gain you the respect and approval of others, but only after you've worked hard at it yourself. Like learning to crochet or play the piano. Something that you can eventually turn into something beautiful that people will love, but not so soon that you get that immediate gratification. Something that you, and only you, have to stick with to make something out of. Everyone wants approvals from others in some way, shape, or form, but becoming so dependent on it that you can't enjoy yourself anymore is a miserable way to live. Unfortunately, at the moment, you may need to convince yourself that what you're doing is for someone else, even though it's designed to benefit and heal you. Learn to give yourself praise. Tell yourself that you're doing a good job. This is important for anyone, honestly. There are people who work on projects in secret for years and years before finally revealing it to the public. And they have to believe in themselves and their work to accomplish something like that. I'm not saying you need to undertake a huge personal project like that, but if you ever come up with an idea like that, then one that would take, forever to finish, you'd probably like to be able to have the will to at least try. Unfortunately, as this is something I've never truly dealt with before, I don't have quite as much to say about it, but if it keeps getting worse, I would recommend going to a professional therapist about this. I don't know if this would be considered mental illness, but I do know that if this mentality persists, you could be in a lot of trouble in the future. Obviously, you know this isn't a healthy mentality for you, and recognizing that is a huge step. But if you can't overcome it on your own, then you really should tell someone who can work one-on-one with you to work through it. Our final question for this show reads, I have a concept for a project that I've been working on for several years, but I've been in a slump for the past couple of years. I don't want to talk too much about what this project is, except that it's a video game remake that is long overdue, and I sincerely believe everyone who played the original would enjoy it. The main reason I'm in a slump is that I'm scared. When this idea is ready to be revealed, the professionals might not even look at it seriously and just dismiss it because I'm not a professional in any aspect of game design. This project is something I would love to see made real, even if it doesn't turn out exactly as I envision it. I don't know if this is a question really appropriate to speak no evil, but I just don't want my efforts to go to waste. So, what can I do to conquer my slump and the fears of this concept getting rejected when it does get presented? Thanks in advance for any advice you can give me. Sincerely signed, Discouraged. Do yourself a favor and look around you. Look at Yooka-Laylee and Mighty Number 9. They're spiritual successors to Banjo and Kazooie in the Mega Man series, and their Kickstarters exploded in like days. Games like this have such a big following that your idea certainly has a chance to make it big like these before it. I understand your fears, of course. It would be heartbreaking to work on something like that for so long, only to be shot down right out of the starting gate. However, one of the biggest things you have working to your advantage right now is the fact that the indie video game market is booming. Indie developers have it so much easier nowadays to get their product noticed. There are people who almost exclusively play indie games, trying to find that next diamond in the rough. There are gaming YouTubers that play indie games pretty exclusively to help give exposure to their sorts of projects. Technically, you don't necessarily need the professional video game industry to approve your game for it to have a chance at success. Of course, making a game on your own isn't easy, and I really wouldn't know how to find someone who would help out, because, trusting someone with your brainchild is always a risk. In all honesty, I really wouldn't know how to get in contact with a video game development company to get their help with something either. Setting up a Kickstarter when you're ready to reveal it might not be such a horrible thing, as it can get the attention of game developers and people who are looking to lend their talents to a project like that. When a great idea gets put out there, there's bound to be people who want to be a part of it. I think looking at projects like Yooka-Laylee and Mighty Number 9 is a great way to prove to yourself that these sorts of ideas do have a loyal following. Be confident that yours will too. Remember how long you've worked on this and know that there's no way that doesn't count for something. As you said, even if a game company doesn't make it exactly as you planned it, it's still a big deal to have your ideas taken seriously and validated. Someone is going to see the potential in it. Someone always does. It's literally people's jobs to look around and see what great new ideas people are coming up with. Believe in yourself and your hard work, and remember that people are out there looking for ideas like yours. Thank you so much for tuning into 57.5 for Speak No Evil this evening. I hope you have a great week, guys. Good night.
Tonight,